Seafarers live and work under more challenging conditions than most of us. They are exposed to an environment that stays with them 24/7 for the duration of their tenure on board the vessel. Before looking for solutions, it is important to understand what is considered to be a mental disorder. According to the WHO's fact sheet, a mental disorder is generally characterized by a combination of abnormal thoughts, perceptions, emotions, behavior, and relationships with others. The disorders include depression, bipolar affective disorder, schizophrenia, dementia, and autism. Of all the disorders, depression is the most prevalent, with over 300 million people affected worldwide. Symptoms of depression include a prolonged period of sadness, loss of interest or pleasure, feeling of low self-worth, loss of sleep or appetite, and lack of concentration. At its worst, depression leads to suicides. Through this insight and the series that will follow, we hope to show that it is sometimes possible to prevent it going that far. Guards data from 2010 to 2019 and compare the number of deaths due to injuries and illness, we see a declining trend from 2013. However, for mental illness and suicide, we see that the numbers have remained somewhat unchanged. Over the last 10 years, we have seen 65 deaths, 32 cases of mental illness, and an average of 4.6 suicides each year. The graph below illustrates the trends that we have seen in our P&I Mutual portfolio. The numbers do not include missing seafarers who are not counted as suicides, so the suicide rate may be underreported. Challenges dealing with mental illness. The first and perhaps greatest challenge is the social stigma associated with mental illness. A person with mental illness is often assumed to be no longer employable. The main reason for this assumption is the lack of understanding of the illness and the lack of awareness of how it is treated and managed. Mental illness, like most other illnesses, is curable. Considerable research has been done on the recovery of people suffering from mental health issues. One such study was done by the Australian Health Services and Support, which found that with proper treatment, most people were able to recover and lead a normal life with no further reoccurrence of the illness. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. This was largely successful in Zimbabwe when the government trained so-called grandmothers in providing this therapy to people in need. Some 6 months after its introduction, only 13 to 14% of people seen by the grandmothers continued to have symptoms of depression or anxiety, compared with about 50% of those who received the standard treatment, in which a nurse talked to them and prescribed medication. Psychological first aid, PFA. In short, PFA is a supportive and practical first response given to people in emotional distress during or immediately after a crisis. Any lay person who is trained in PFA can provide emotional support, and PFA can help to prevent the onset and development of mental illnesses. The Red Cross has a lot of experience in interacting with individuals with signs of mental illness. Their experience with PFA has been generally positive, as it is quickly effective. Their recommendation is to look for the initial symptoms of mental illness such as irritability, anxiety, absenteeism, or aggression towards colleagues, and to intervene before it gets worse. But who could provide the PFA on board a ship? The answer to this may be the senior members of the shipboard team. A common assumption is that cadets are the most vulnerable to self-harm. The care, or the first aid, has 3 basic steps. Looking for signs of stress, initiating a dialogue with the individual by actively listening without being judgmental, and providing practical help. As a starting point, it is important to accept that seafarers have the same challenges, feelings, and motivations in their day-to-day life as anyone else. In addition, they have the challenge of being constrained 24/7 on board a ship for long periods of time and far away from friends and family. Their behavior can be a response to the environment on board the ships. Seafarers should be encouraged to talk about mental health to bring normality to the issue. Mental health should be discussed routinely.